Hey everyone, this is Rihanna from A Frugal Life, and today we're going to be talking about my top tips for eliminating food waste in your kitchen. So even if you are religious about saving money at the grocery store, it doesn't matter if you get the groceries home and they end up getting thrown away 2 weeks later. So food waste is a huge thing that you want to look at when you're looking at your grocery budget. I'm going to talk about where you can eliminate food waste in your kitchen, how to prevent it entirely, and my top tips for just making it a better budget overall with no food waste. So my first tip is to stick to your list. So it is very important when you go into the grocery store to avoid impulse buys. This is not only to avoid the initial upfront cost of those goods that you may not have needed anyways, but to eliminate throwing those goods away later, because chances are if you didn't put them on your list in the first place, you may not eat them later on down the road anyways. Just because it looks good in the store, in the packaging, on the shelf, does not mean that when you actually get it home, it fits practically into your life. And I'm not just talking about chips and cookies and candy and soda as you're checking out. I'm talking about as you go through the aisles and notice something on super sale that you just have to have, and you're thinking, well, I don't usually eat that, but for 25 cents a box, I can eat that. I am guilty of it as well. I do go to grocery outlet and I see these types of sales all the time, but I have been able to eliminate and prevent myself from purchasing things I won't eat, or people in my household will not eat, because I did follow these tips myself later on down in the video. But the first thing you want to do is when you get to the grocery store, stick to your list. Do not buy anything that is not on your list without carefully evaluating whether it is something that maybe you should have put on the list, or it's something you're just purchasing because it's on sale or it looks good at the moment. Number 2 is to plan intentionally and to shop intentionally. So this goes along with impulse buys, but it also goes along with making your list in the first place. So as you're going along making your meal plan and your grocery list for the week, realize, are there some things that you could eliminate that you don't really eat that much, or that you just buy because you've always bought them and maybe you don't really need to eat them, or you don't really need to buy them anymore. So if you always purchase the specific type of peanut butter because your kids like, or if you always purchased an extra loaf of bread because that's what your mom did, evaluate each thing on your list and determine whether it's just force of habit that you're purchasing it or putting it on your list, or whether you actually need it for your plan for the week. Number 3, our rule in our household is lunch is always leftovers. Unless, of course, I've planned correctly and there are no leftovers. But if there are leftovers from the night before, somebody is eating those for lunch the next day. If there's a whole lot and we can actually use it for dinner that night, that's fine. Then you can eat something else for lunch. But if there's just enough for 1 or 2 people for lunch, then we eat those leftovers for lunch. We do not want them to go bad. Even if we don't really want spaghetti for lunch, we eat it anyways, because it's important not to dump food because it's been sitting there for too long. So don't look at it and think, hey, I'm going to eat it 3 days from now. You don't need to save leftovers for 3 days. Make sure that you're eating your leftovers the day after, or planning how you're going to use them in a meal or freeze them for later. So make sure that leftovers get used by the very next day. So number 4 is something I always try to do, especially now because we are trying to lose a great deal of weight combined in my household, but it is to cook within regulated portion controls. So I try to cook just enough for each person for that meal. However, there's some times that I do plan and cook enough for leftovers for the next day. If it's something that we really like and we actually are going to want to eat the next day, if you do at least try to cook within portions, you will have a lot less leftovers to worry about and a lot less food that might get wasted down the line. Number 5 is the perfect thing to do if you're new to all of this, and that is to keep a food waste journal. You don't have to keep it for a long time. 30 days is great if you can keep it up, but to get a little journal, like I have just a notebook, and then I write down everything that I've thrown away. So just keep it in the kitchen as you toss something that could have been used, a half a gallon of milk that went bad, or leftovers, or vegetables that went bad in the crisper. Write down the amount, when you tossed it, and what it was. That way, when you do make your grocery list, you can realize that you don't need to buy as much of that particular item. So it's a fantastic tool, a free tool for analyzing how much you use during the month, how much you waste during the month, and what you can stop buying. And this is going to be the second video with dog snoring in it, so I apologize. I just realized she was sleeping in the background. I cannot get her to leave this room when I'm videotaping, and she is a pit bull, so she naps all the time, and when she naps, she snores. So I'm going to put a disclaimer here. Sorry for the pit bull snoring. Number 6 is going to be a timing one, and it is super easy, is eat the most perishable items first. So if you go shopping and you love fresh vegetables and you buy a lot of fresh fruit and vegetables, but you also buy things like frozen veggies on sale or canned veggies to stock up on, make sure that when you are cooking during the week, you are eating the fresh vegetables first. So don't save the bananas or the strawberries, or don't even save the carrots and things like that for the end of the week. If you can make the meal plan, if you can make the meal items that have the perishables first, you will definitely prevent food waste. So sometimes things go bad faster way sooner than we think they will. So just make sure that you put the items with the perishable items on the Monday and Tuesday meal plan, and the items with more frozen items on the end of the week meal plan. So talking about the pit bull snoring, I've kicked her out of the room. Hopefully she will not bark. I've actually brought the little dogs in here, so hopefully the rest of the video will not have pit bull snoring in it. Please bear with me if you do hear dogs in the background. So number 7 is, especially for people like me that like to can and dehydrate, is preserve in smaller quantities. So just because you do have larger canning jars doesn't mean that you should always preserve things in larger amounts, because when you do open them, there's a tendency that you may not use it all. So if you have smaller jars for spaghetti sauce and things like that because you use a smaller amount, then I definitely recommend using the smaller jars, even if it's a little bit more work on the upkeep. So I do the same thing when I use my vacuum sealer to freeze things. When I buy bulk in big meat packages, I put them in 1 pound packages instead of 2 or 3 pound packages. That way, if I'm making soup or something that uses a smaller meat amount, when I do actually thaw it out, I use the whole amount and we don't end up with a ton of leftovers that don't get eaten. Number 8 is a great one if you like to shop the sales, especially at discount stores. So I did say don't buy things that you think you won't eat, but there are times that you want to try things like a new cereal or a new cheese or something that is on sale, and you want to grab it up because it's on sale and you've not got to try it before. Well, if you're going to do that, make sure you just buy a little bit, not a lot. Just because the cereal is only $1, if you've never tried it before, don't buy 5 of them, just buy 1 of them. Believe me, even if you're afraid that you'll miss out on the sale because you're not buying enough of it and it's going to sell out, it's better than throwing away 10 boxes of cereal that you took 1 bite of and you hate. So make sure you just buy things in small quantities if you're not absolutely positive you'll love it. Number 9 is to use your ends and bits. So I actually have a pot on the stove right now. I will put a picture up above. So I actually have a pot on the stove right now. I will put a picture up above. Usually I use a crock pot, but I broke the lid and have to buy a new one. So in a soup pot right now, I have all the ends and bits I've been saving in the freezer. Ends of onions, carrots, pieces of veggies that we didn't actually use. Anything that you were chopping to make a meal and turned out not to go in the meal for some reason because it's usually a food scrap, goes in the freezer bag. And people recommend this all the time, but most people don't actually do it. So you can keep a freezer bag for a long time until it's completely full. I just keep a gallon freezer bag. And right now in the stock pot are some ends and bits, broccoli ends, carrots, onions. I think I put even tomatoes and corn and some things in there. Throw them in there with some water and slow cook all day. So if you don't have a slow cooker right now, I don't until I get that lid. I just put it in the pot and put it on low. So I'm here all day, so it's okay. I put it on low, I will cook it all day, I will strain out those veggies. I don't even dump those veggies. So those ends and bits that cooked out of their nutrients and their flavor went to the chickens, and now I have some great, amazing vegetable broth. If you have bones, you can also save them in a separate container and make bone broth, or you can combine it with the veggie and make this amazing chicken vegetable or pork vegetable broth that you can use for soup later on down the road. So that ties me into the next one, which is not for everybody, but it works for me, is to get chickens. We live in a rural area, so we're allowed to have as many as we want. We are actually up to 17 chickens now, but when I first started out, I just had 6 chickens. So every year we get a few more chickens to add to the flock because eventually they'll stop laying, and every week we get tons and tons of eggs, but we also get to use up leftovers, food scraps, anything that would normally go to the waste in the kitchen. Before it goes too bad, we can give it to the chickens. So I try to make it so not too much goes bad, but if I have to, I end up giving it to the chickens. So the food scraps from the soup, sometimes little bits and ends of pasta and things from dinner that don't make enough for leftovers, never goes in the trash as long as it's not something that will harm them. and chickens are pretty much garbage disposals. They will eat anything. You can give it to your chickens. Make sure it's not poisonous. Look up a list online. If you don't have chickens yet, consider this as a great frugal savings for their food. My chickens don't actually have to have a lot of food purchased for them because between scraps and the bugs that they eat and free ranging in our yard, they just have to have a little bit of supplement of food, and they get very nutritious balance of everything, and they lay some great eggs. So one thing you can do with your food scraps is give them to your chickens. So next goes along with your weekly food prep, and I recommend this in lots of videos, is to prep your veggies and things ahead of time. But one of the reasons I do this is actually to prevent food waste. So if you have an entire bag of onions, sometimes you just don't bother to throw the onion into the meal because it's too much work to cook it. You just want to keep going throughout the meal and make a 10-minute meal instead of a 30-minute meal, especially if you got home late from work or the kids are screaming or something like that. However, if you meal prep everything ahead of time, put the scraps in the freezer, put everything else diced, chopped in either the fridge or the freezer. So my onions and bell peppers go in the freezer in nice containers full of chopped veggies, and then other things like diced carrots go in the refrigerator, and that way when I cook, I can just pull them out and throw them in. So I never have things like onions or potatoes or carrots going bad because I pre-prepped them at the beginning of the week so I can use them all week long. And the last one is for people with younger children. I don't have younger children anymore, but if you do have younger children at home, it is a great idea to actually serve their plates to them. So I know that you want them to be independent, but especially if they're littler, at least portion out their meals for them and decide how much is going to go on their plate, because kids, especially if they like something, will put a ton on their plate and then not eat it. Or if they pour their own ketchup, they'll pour half the bottle. So make sure that you're giving them kid-size containers to use, kid-size plates, kid-size utensils, and kid-size portions. And that goes when you're cooking as well. Take into account that if you're cooking for a large man or a small child. So make sure everybody's portion controlled for the day, and if you have to serve it to them in portions, serve it to them in portions. That is it for today. Thank you so much for stopping by. Please like and subscribe, and at least hit the notification bell, because the notification bell will tell you when my next video is coming out. I'm so happy to see you. Be sure and join the Facebook group if you want to talk to us personally, or just email me at rihanna@afrugallife.org.